Over 200 U.S. soldiers wiped out in a single afternoon. No survivors. No warning. Just silence where they once stood. And a battlefield that didn't make sense. This wasn't supposed to be a fight. It was supposed to be easy. So how do you lose a battle you were certain you'd already won? In the summer of 1876, the United States believed it was closing in on the final resistance of the plains. Columns of cavalry moved with confidence across open land, carrying the mindset of a nation that no longer expected to be challenged. The mission seemed simple. Locate the remaining Lakota and Cheyenne. Force them back. End it. Force the remaining Lakota and Cheyenne onto reservations and end the conflict for good. But this wasn't just a military campaign. It was a collision between two worlds, one expanding, the other refusing to disappear. And somewhere along the Little Bighorn River, that certainty began to crack. Chapter 1. The Arrogance. The plan was built on confidence. Too much of it. After the Civil War, U.S. officers believed no force on the plains could match them. Discipline, firepower, structure. They trusted it completely. Years of war had convinced them that organized armies always win. Especially not native warriors they viewed as scattered and uncoordinated. But those assumptions ignored something dangerous: experience. Years of resistance had shaped fighters who knew the land better than any map. Leaders like George Armstrong Custer were certain of it. Bold moves had worked before. There was no reason to hesitate now. Even when scouts warned of a massive village, the reports were dismissed. These weren't guesses. They came from Crow and Iroquois scouts who had seen the signs. But what they reported didn't match what officers expected. Custer estimated a few hundred warriors, not thousands. At the same time, the U.S. was already breaking its own agreements. The Treaty of Fort Laramie had guaranteed Lakota control of the Black Hills. But something had already changed the stakes. But gold changed everything. News spread fast, faster than control ever could. Miners flooded the land. Trails turned into routes. Routes turned into settlements. The army followed. And when native leaders refused to surrender their way of life, they were labeled hostile. So the strategy became simple. Find them, surround them, force them back. 3 separate columns moved in, each moving with limited awareness of the others, each trusting timing over certainty, each one believing it could handle the situation alone. But there was one problem. No one actually knew where the enemy was, or how many they were facing. Chapter 2. The Trap. The village wasn't small. It was massive. It stretched across the valley, alive with movement. Families, warriors, horses, all gathered in one place. Larger than anything the army expected to find. Thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho had gathered, many refusing to live under U.S. control. This wasn't just a camp. It was a concentration of resistance. And for once, they were united. Groups that had once fought separately now stood together. Numbers mattered, but coordination mattered more. Leaders like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse weren't reacting. They were preparing. Warriors stayed ready. Horses stayed close. The land itself became part of the defense. Days before the battle, Sitting Bull spoke of a vision. During a sacred sun dance, he described something unsettling. Soldiers falling into camp, upside down. A warning, or a promise. Still, when word spread that soldiers were nearby, most didn't believe an attack would come. Not here. Not against this many. Not against a force this large. But it did. On June 25, 1876, near the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Custer made his move, and made his biggest mistake. He divided his forces. One decision, multiple consequences. Breaking his regiment meant weaker coordination, slower response, less control, 3 separate commands, separated by distance, limited communication, no clear picture of the battlefield. What was meant to trap the village started to expose the army instead. And once the first shots were fired, the situation didn't unfold as planned. It unraveled. Some details in historical records vary depending on sources, but the core events remain widely documented. Chapter 3. The Collapse. The attack didn't go as planned. It fell apart. Major Reno advanced first. He crossed the river and pushed forward, expecting resistance, but not what came next. But the response was immediate. Warriors surged from the village with speed and intent. They didn't hesitate. They didn't scatter. They moved together. Fast, coordinated, relentless. Reno's line broke. Pressure built quickly. Too quickly. The formation couldn't hold. What began as an assault turned into a retreat, then a rout. Control disappeared. Orders lost meaning. Soldiers fled across the river. Panic replaced strategy, cut down as they ran. But that was only part of the disaster. Because while Reno collapsed, Custer moved forward. Alone, he moved along higher ground, expecting timing to hold everything together. It didn't. He expected support. It never came. Distances widened. Messages failed. The battlefield split into pieces. Instead, hundreds of warriors, now freed from Reno's fight, turned toward him. They didn't scatter. They converged, closing distance, cutting off escape. What followed wasn't a last stand. There was no stable defense, no controlled position, only fragments of resistance under pressure. It was an overwhelming, a complete collapse. Within a short time, Custer and over 200 of his men were dead. No survivors, no reinforcements, just silence where a command once stood. Chapter 4: The Aftermath. The victory shocked the nation. The news didn't just spread, it disrupted everything people thought they understood. An entire unit gone. The idea of an easy war collapsed overnight. But shock doesn't end conflict. It escalates it. But the outcome didn't bring peace. It triggered something else. Escalation. Pressure to respond grew fast. Military strategy hardened. More troops, more pressure, more destruction of native resources, especially the buffalo they depended on. As the buffalo disappeared, so did options. Survival became harder. Resistance became weaker. Within a year, many of the same groups that won at Little Bighorn were forced to surrender. The shift wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. The Black Hills were taken, without agreement, without compensation. The victory had been real, but it didn't last, and the cost was everything. Closing reflection. Power often fails in the same way, not because it's weak, but because it believes it understands what it's facing. At the Battle of the Little Bighorn, the United States didn't just lose a battle. It misjudged a people, their strategy, their unity, their will to survive. And by the time that reality became clear, it was already too late. Thanks for watching. Mode Hub Tales brings untold history to life. Stories history rarely tells the right way. Subscribe now to uncover more. Because history doesn't disappear, it waits to be remembered.